considering divorce? Are you dealing with it now? Are you on the other side and not sure what comes next? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Divorce Do's and Don'ts Show with your host, Lisa C. Decker.
Welcome to today's show, everyone. My name is Marcella Cripe, Client Care Manager at Divorcetown USA and the producer of this show. Please allow me to introduce your host, Lisa C. Decker. Lisa is a certified divorce financial analyst and a real estate collaboration specialist in divorce. Lisa is also the CEO and founder of Divorce Money Matters and the wonderful organization that brings us this show, Divorcetown USA. So welcome, Lisa. What can we expect today?
Thank you so much, Marcella. Well, for those of you who've been following us, you know that in the month
We lost you, Lisa. So during the month of May.
Oh, no. Can you hear me
back.
now?
You're back. Yep.
Okay. This is live TV, folks. We're going to have fun today. All right. So during the month of May, we've been promoting and supporting National Mental Health Month with each week's show. And today we have a great honor and privilege to welcome esteemed guest, Bill Eddy. Bill has been a family therapist, family lawyer, family mediator, and is currently the co-founder and chief innovation officer of the High Conflict Institute. He is also the author of more than 20 books in manuals, including BIFF or Biff for CoParent communication and splitting, protecting yourself while divorcing someone with borderline or narcissistic personality disorder. Bill has also developed the New Ways for Families skill training method for separation and divorce, all of which we're going to be talking about in more detail today. We are so excited to have you here. Mr. Eddy, welcome to our show. This is such a great honor. You are so well known in this world of divorce, and you have done so much good in the world for helping people through a difficult time. I am truly honored to have you here today.
Thanks so much, Lisa. I'm glad to be on, and make sure you call me Bill.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Well, I want to get right to talking about your books because you have some fascinating material out there. So one of your books is BIFF or Biff or Co-Parent Communication. Can you tell us why you wrote it, what the Biff method is, and why it may be particularly helpful for co-parents with personality disorders?
Well, the idea was, as a practicing lawyer, after I was a therapist, I realized that my clients' communication with their former spouse or former partner was so important and was usually just escalating. Everyone was upset. We were seeing emails in court, and judges were saying, how are you talking to each other? And actually, I was giving a seminar, and a couple of judges said, what can we do about this co-parent communication? And I said, well, it has to be brief. It has to be just straight information, no emotion, defenses, and such. It has to be friendly, just a tone at least, and firm, end the hostilities instead of escalating them. So I wanted to write this as a method. I was teaching my clients and figured, well, let's tell the world about this method because so many people were stuck in this downward spiral. And so we first wrote a Biff book. I got one out in 2011. But Biff for Co-Parent Communication, interestingly, was written during the early days of COVID. And so it came out November 2020. And the purpose really is to give parents a method that's really simple that helps them stay out of the mud. If the other person's throwing mud at you, you don't have to throw it back. Instead, give them a Biff response. And so we came up with 20 scenarios, and that really guides in many ways what people can do. So we show people how to write it, what not to say, what to say, and how to check yourself that you're brief, informative, friendly, and firm.
That's fantastic. You want to give us a scenario or two?
Well, yeah, I can give you one. Where did this go? I've got an example. Let's say this is a lateness example. Um, there's so many instances people just say nasty things to each other. And so let's see, where's that example? Here we go. So one parent writes emails to the other. They've got two young children. So it's not fair you take the children to all their appointments and do all the talking to the teachers for both of us. I'm an equal parent and should be taking them at least half their doctor's appointments. I shouldn't have to hear from you that Brianna needs braces. I should be able to talk directly with the dentist. From now on, I'll be taking the kids to every appointment. Holly responds, "You're such an idiot. I've been doing all the doctor's appointments and handling the kids' routine since they were born." On and on and on. So then, can Ryan respond with a Biff response? So here's the question. Here's his response. We have joint legal decision making. We both want what's best for them. We both want to be involved. Our documents point out we're supposed to do these things. I contacted the doctor's office, found out the next appointment date. It's on your parenting day, so I can change that appointment to the next one available so I can take her, or we can leave it there, but I need to be able to go to the next appointment. So he changes it from "you're an idiot" and demands to problem solving and
Love that.
information friendly and firm. So that's just one example of 28 that we have in the book.
And so simple.
Yes, and it's so easy to slip into all those blaming words. We call it blame speak, you, and idiot, and you're the one, and all that stuff. When in fact, you just clean that away and you just get the information out there. And if you need a decision, you say, please let me know yes or no by Thursday at 5, and you're done. You don't have to add all this other stuff. And if the other person's hostile to you, you don't have to be hostile back. And that's really the secret to the Biff response.
It's learning to control yourself. You can't control the other person. So you're taking control really by controlling the conversation and not allowing it to get out of control. There's a lot of control in all of that.
And that's the key, talking about mental health, is to manage yourself, because how you manage yourself influences how people respond to you. So you're absolutely right.
I think this Biff method could work for all kinds of communication, not just co-parenting. It's really a fantastic thing that you've come up with here. I'm going to use this in other things in my life. I love it.
Thank you. Let me just mention we have a Biff at Work book now.
Oh, good.
Because Biff at Work really helps too. That's the other high conflict pace many people are in every day. And so that really eases that. But the world really needs to learn more peaceful communication. So this is our small part of that.
Oh, we need this at the United Nations. Our ambassadors and world leaders need to be using the Biff method.
I wish.
What a more peaceful planet it would be. What response are you finding that people are having when they're using this? Are they surprised that it's working so well?
Well, it's surprise and pride. People are proud of, look how I calmed the conversation. Look what came at me. So I get lawyers send me their clients' Biff responses. They say, look what the other side said that was hostile and abrasive, and look at what my client wrote back. And so people are proud of their responses. And I'm also getting feedback that when one person starts writing this way, the other person, even if they've been hostile and rude, etc., starts writing this way too, because they see that it looks better And if you get your emails in court someday, you want to
Mhm.
be the ones with the Biff method.
Right. So
Yeah,
there's more than one reason to do this. You're right. Yes.
yeah. I might let me add that there's a case recently where a judge gave each party a copy of the Biff book and said, if I see you again, I'm going to ask to see your emails and whether you're writing with the Biff method. So you
That's
need to use
fantastic.
that going forward. So that was very exciting to me.
Wow. Well, it sounds like we need more people to be aware of this method because it really is so simple and so
Yes.
powerful, so incredibly powerful. You cut to the chase, you cut out all the extraneous stuff that really is just inflaming the situation, and it brings a sense of calm. Um,
Yes.
do you find that as a conversation is going, sometimes you're going to have somebody who's just going to continue to try and inflame on the other side? Does the person come back with another Biff response, another Biff response? Does that finally get the other person to realize they're not getting under their skin? They're going to just knock it off? Like, how do you do this when you have really, really high conflict cases?
Yes, and we do. And here's what we recommend is you get another hostile response, give another Biff response, but shorter. It's even briefer. So there's less engagement. And then either say that's all I'll be saying on this issue, or if they come back again, say I've already said my thoughts on this issue, see yesterday's email. And then after that, they don't respond at all. So it's a shrinking down of responses, which is the opposite of what you see so much today, where it escalates and everyone tries to top each other.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not really the way to do it. It's really shrink it down, make it smaller and smaller. And people usually, they realize I'm not going to get you upset anymore. And they kind of give up, at least for a little while.
I almost am getting the visual of dousing a flame.
Oh, you're totally perfect with that. I tell people this is like pouring cold water on the flames. And
Oh,
it really is. I'm so glad you got that analogy.
that's fantastic because yeah, I could literally see that, just the flame um, quieting down and finally going out. And
Yes.
just a beautiful way of handling this. So how is it particularly helpful though when you have co-parents with personality disorders? Because that is, something even at another level when the flames are even bigger.
Yeah, so a little bit about personality disorders. So personality disorders seem to be about 10% of the adult population. And about half of them, we believe, have high conflict personalities, which means they're preoccupied with blaming others rather than looking at their own part in things. And so you get a lot of this blame, what I mentioned, blame speak, comes from people with personality disorders who have targets of blame. Often they're co-parent, but sometimes other relatives, other people, and certainly professionals. And so this was designed especially for high conflict personalities who are preoccupied with blame, because it doesn't blame them back, because that just feeds the flame, like you were saying. Instead, it just calms the conversation and redirects it to problem solving. And here's an interesting thing that may be true for some people with personality disorders, and that is the bridge between the left and right hemispheres seems to be smaller. And there's some research on that. And that means that managing problem solving, which is more associated with the left brain, versus defensive emotions that are more associated with the right brain. And the brain does lots of things, but these two seem to be left and right, that when they're upset, they can't get to their problem solving as easily. But if the people they're dealing with shift to problem solving, that helps them shift to problem solving. And so we find this is a way to really emotionally kind of assist someone with a personality disorder who's stuck in emotions and blame and help them over to the problem solving side.
Oh,
So that's, I think, why it works
wow.
so well.
That's interesting from a neuroscience perspective. So you integrate so many different things here because of your background and your experience. I mean, just a phenomenal amount of knowledge in so many areas of divorce. And obviously also from the therapeutic side, how people think and all of that going on. Would you define personality disorders and give a few examples for folks? Because not everyone may be familiar with that.
Yeah. So the Diagnostic Manual for Mental Health Professionals defines a personality disorder as an enduring pattern of behavior that's generally socially impaired, that there's some interpersonal dysfunction to it, and may be highly distressing internally to the person. But it's the fact that it's an enduring pattern means that they get stuck. And there's 10 different types of personality disorders. The one that people have heard of the most is narcissistic personality disorder. And they're all on a continuum. Some people have traits, but not really a disorder. When they have a disorder, it means basically they're not changing. It's an enduring pattern. They don't see their part, they can't self-reflect, and so they're always blaming and looking outside of themselves. And they don't change their behavior. So what you see today, you're going to see 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. Now, with that said, we're starting to see some therapies that do help change somewhat these behaviors. So that's the key definition of a personality disorder, is basically an enduring pattern of interpersonally dysfunctional behavior that's not going to change, or is very hard to change, rarely changes, but might not be impossible if people get in the right kind of treatment, which takes, months or years.
Mm.
I think it's telling, sorry about that. I think it's telling too that you said that there's only 10% of the adult population with personality disorders. And of that 10%, only 5% are considered high conflict, because that narcissism is a word you just hear thrown around pretty freely nowadays, but
Yeah.
it's simply impossible that everyone is divorcing a narcissist.
Right.
The facts don't support that. So having this type of education on how to better communicate in whatever conflict situation you might find yourself in is going to be very helpful to a lot of people.
Yes, and you can use these methods, all the methods we teach, you can use with anybody. So you don't have to go, oh, do they have a diagnosis? Should I use this? Is just use it with everybody. You don't have to, it's not harmful. But also, speaking of harmful, don't tell somebody you think they have a personality disorder, because that's such a misunderstood and loaded topic that it really triggers defensiveness, really, for everybody. No one wants to be told they have a personality disorder. It's kind of like you have leprosy, and that doesn't make people feel comfortable. So don't tell somebody that. But if you think they might have a personality disorder or high conflict personality preoccupied with blame, all of this stuff can be really useful. So adapt what you do. Don't try to change that person or put a label on them.
Mm. And I was just going to say what Marcella said. I've heard the same statistics as well. So, and many of the people that come to us talk about a narcissistic spouse, not all, but we do hear that term bandied around quite often. And so we understand. But I thought it was interesting that you talked about the continuum, that just like autism, there's a spectrum, and you can have a little bit, or you can have a lot of different symptoms and characteristics. And so, people may have some of those narcissistic ways, but not necessarily have a narcissistic personality disorder, a
Right.
complete disorder. So that's a good point. You wrote another book, Splitting, And this was written specifically for people dealing with the potentially high conflict divorce. So what does this book recommend? We know about the Biff method, but sometimes we need something a little more.
Well, this is really, this is the second book I wrote, and it really emphasizes understanding two personality disorders, narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder, because those disorders or traits of those seem to be showing up so much, especially in court cases, and they confused people, and people often did exactly the opposite of what they should have done. So I wrote this with co-author Randy Kreger, who wrote the book Stop Walking on Eggshells about borderline personality disorder. And my purpose in this was to really explain what to expect and what to do, ideally out of court. So if I say try for out of court settlement of your case, your partner, co-parent, spouse won't escalate as much if you can do it out of court because they're not being attacked and criticized publicly. But be prepared to have to go to court. And so keep good records, document incidents that happen that could be used against you or distorted so you have an accurate description. Because one of the big things that happens with personality disorders is they distort information. They put an all or nothing spin on things. They see little things as humongous. They see big things as insignificant. They have emotional reasoning. They feel it's true, so it must be true. I feel that he's molesting our daughter, therefore it must be true, and I'm going to go to court and do all these things. Now, sometimes that is true, but a lot of times that isn't, and that's an example of how they might distort things and escalate problems unnecessarily. So a lot of the book is about, if you do go to court, what to expect and what to do, and if you try to negotiate and stay out of court, different methods for doing that, like mediation, like collaborative divorce, like getting lawyers to help negotiate. So it's really looking at the whole spectrum of potential difficulties. We talk about mild, moderate, and severe cases. And I took it from the perspective, when I wrote this, I'd been a family therapist for 12 years, followed by 11 years as a family lawyer. So I had already, 23 years in on dealing with difficult divorces. And I really combined the mental health information and approaches and the legal information and approaches. And it's been our biggest seller. It's been out since 2004. So that's, 18 years. And it really, I think, just puts it all together. And that was my goal.
It sounds like you've accomplished that and done a lot of good in the world with helping people to understand ways to manage this. The other thing that came to mind when you were talking about staying out of the courtroom, it would seem for me that people with these types of personality disorders like having a stage, like having the ability to put on the show. And so keeping them out of the courtroom will keep the stage away and keep some of that conflict away as well.
Absolutely. And what's sad is they really believe that it's all the other person's fault because of this external process. And so they proudly go to court to show the world how this other person is awful without realizing that their own behavior looks equally bad or maybe much more. And of course, this raises the current case with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Mhm.
If I was to advise either of them, I'd say more than anything, stay out of court. You're going to look pretty bad. At this point, I think they both look pretty bad.
Yes.
So that's a good thing, but they can't see it if they have a personality disorder.
Mm.
People can't see their part. And unfortunately, the court process allows them to vent a lot, even though it may be quite distorted. And I've, represented hundreds of people in family court who I believe were in court because of one party's personality, either traits or disorder. And hopefully, in most cases, it was the other person. But I also feel good about managing my own clients with some of those traits. And a lot can settle their case out of court if they're managed well, especially by the professionals involved in the case. Professionals make it worse or better, and in many ways decide whether you're going to court or staying out of court.
Oh, totally agree with that. We are part of an amicable divorce network. And, folks want to have professionals who will not fan the flames and who are settlement minded and who are skilled at helping them keep the emotions intact, so that they can get through to the other side without losing their mind, their money, and the fabric of their family. So that's good stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple key things I want to make sure I mention about this book if we have time.
Sure, we've got a couple minutes here.
Okay.
We could talk about this all day long, Bill. You're fascinating. I'd love to have you back again as a guest if we can continue the conversation.
Oh, sure. No, I'd love it. So the first thing is, in the book, I recommend an assertive approach. So if you're in court or negotiating, that you don't take an aggressive approach where you try to harm the other party. That's what high conflict people do. Instead, take an assertive approach where you stand up for yourselves, you put out your information, you don't let yourself be walked on, but your goal is not to hurt the other person. And that's an assertive approach. So you have to be just as strong as they are aggressive, but not in an aggressive manner. Otherwise, you look like a high conflict person too. And it's really not mentally healthy for either person to be blaming and attacking like that. The second thing is, I put near the end of the book to present patterns of concerning behavior if you're in a court case, rather than giving the label and saying, my wife is a borderline or my husband is a narcissist. Family court judges don't want to hear that. Partly they just don't understand it, but mostly they see it as just name calling and that you don't know that, so why are you saying that? So it's more helpful to describe the specific patterns of behavior. Maybe there was some physical abuse. Maybe there was undermining your parenting. Maybe there was misleading or even lying to professionals. Those kinds of things, show those patterns rather than putting a label on them.
Very good advice. Very good advice. Well, I'm so sad that our we've come to our time. Marcella, do we have any time left here? I know you're my watch clock keeper here.
We have 2 minutes before we have to go off air. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of what we're going to be talking about next week. That's about it.
Okay, so Bill, I will be in contact because there is so much more to this conversation and so much more to your experience that we'd love to have you come back later in the year when it's convenient for you and talk about your new ways for families method that you've developed. We didn't even get to that. So hang on, folks. We'll be back at another time with Bill and we'll be sharing more about this fascinating topic. All right, Marcella, why don't you take us from here?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. So for everyone who is watching the show today, as always, you can get your Divorcetown roadmap, which will help keep your conflict down and explain some healthier, better options for divorce at Divorcetown USA. Also at the marketplace on Divorcetown USA, you can find both of Bill Eddy's books that we talked about today, both the BIF method for co-parenting and also the splitting for divorcing couples. So go ahead and head over to Divorcetown USA and you will be able to get so many resources to help you with your divorce process. Also, our host, Lisa Decker, has put together a free divorce financial fitness kit. at divorcemoneymatters.com. You can download this kit, get better organized, and better understand your money matters during the divorce process. For those of you who are looking for some additional emotional support, we do want to direct you also to Divorcetown USA, where you will be able to find upcoming meetings that the Divorce Help and Hope Support Group will be holding. We meet once or twice a month, and it is always open to the public, and there's never a charge for that. Finally, what do we have coming up next week? Well, next week, we have a very special panel. We'll be discussing rainbow divorce, the unique challenges of a LGBTQ+ separation, with guests William Smith and Jillian Bloom. So please join us for that next week. We want to thank all of you for coming to today's show. We thank you, and we cannot wait to see you next week.
See you next week. Same place, same time.
Bye-bye, everyone.